Well, hey there, all you beautiful people. My name is Sam, and welcome back to Green Acre Homestead. The other day, I put a frost-free hydrant on the side of our well house here. And I did that in preparation of hooking up our drip irrigation system that runs down this hill behind me, way beyond my workshop, to our lower garden. After doing some research and asking a few questions, I was trying to figure out how long do I run the irrigation for? Do I let it run for 30 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, 3 days? I don't know. So I hit up a local Facebook group of other gardeners and I posed the question to them to get their take. Long story short, no one could give me an answer, but they did give me an answer by saying we can't give you an answer. What they were really getting at is that a lot of it depends on your soil composition, how much rainwater you've had, how dry your ground is, and things of the sort. What they recommended is that I run it for about 30 minutes to an hour and then dig down in my soil to see how far the water has made it and if that's appropriate or not for my garden. We run our whole homestead off of a well. It's right here in this well house behind me. Our well, when we put it in, had to be drilled close to 400 feet deep, and we were only able to get 2.5 gallons per minute out of it. When they hit water, we had them go even further to give us a reservoir or storage in our well casing. That being said, we don't have an artesian well here. We don't have thousands of gallons to irrigate with, and I'm really concerned about how much water is this drip irrigation system actually going to use. With the concern of how much water we're actually going to be throwing out in our garden and the concern of will it run our well dry, I picked up a little cheap digital water meter. This thing goes in line on a garden hose and measures how much water flows through it within a given time frame. So let's go ahead and hook this thing up, run the irrigation for 20 minutes, 30 minutes maybe, see how much water we pump through, and see if it does any good in our lower garden. Alright, we'll start by hooking this up to the well house hose spigot here. And then I'll connect our irrigation pipe. Alright, then we just turn it on and measure the water. Alright, she's off and running. Let's go down to the lower garden, take a look, see how things are going. You know, it's going to be boring up here. This thing's just going to tick around and show me gallons. So let's ride on the four-wheeler down to the garden and see what's going on down there. Down in the lower garden and walking over to the irrigation pipe, and looks good. I don't see any new water. Now I will clarify, if you guys remember from the other video, whenever I installed the drip tape, I said that I had a fitting that was just going to be good enough for now. Well, I replaced it earlier today. I had to do some finagling. I bought the wrong barb adapter, but I was able to use some old busted up garden hose and a union and fitting and all that, and basically make my own adapter from the black poly pipe to a garden hose and then to the irrigation system itself. So we'll take a look at that real quick, give it a once over, let you guys see it, and then we'll turn this thing on and start watering this garden. There's the adapter I came up with. It's a barbed union or coupler and garden hose fit over top of it and goes into a shutoff valve that I put here, and it goes into the actual sediment filter, backflow preventer, PSI regulator, pressure regulator, and irrigation system. Oops, I don't need to do that. Come on now. Don't break it before you ever get to use it. Alright, let's go ahead and turn this baby on. We've got quite the symphony of sound going on out here. There's all sorts of squirts and gurgles and going all through this garden. Different, never heard it. Never heard this before. Makes sense though. It's pushing all the air bubbles out and doing its thing, doing what it does. So nice. Let's see if I can find some money shots or some action shots of what's going on, because the majority of this stuff is buried, so it's kind of like, yep, that's all there is to see. Let me find something. I know there's got to be something somewhere to look at. So this drip tape, even though it's flat, when this stuff gets pressurized, it squishes up to a nice round little hose there. Oh, squishy, squishy, squishy. So that's cool to see. There's a few leaks here at the main filter regulator check valve assembly here, so I'll grab my pliers and I'll fix those a little bit. Just kind of tweak them down a little bit so they're just right and they don't leak. Otherwise, things look pretty good out here. I don't have any major blowouts, which is great. That being said, let me walk down to the ends of the rows down here where we've got the drip tape couplers or clamps and make sure we're not just pouring water down any of these rows. I tell you, for the most part, I'm really happy with all this down here. There's a couple of ends of these rows where the drip tape clamps aren't super tight. They're a little bit leaky here and there, but honestly, this ain't bad. I mean, if you consider how much water is being wasted with this setup right here, even with the few little issues we got, versus how much water would be wasted of just sprinkling and spraying the top of the ground, I really don't think there's any comparison. It is getting close to 30-minute mark since I turned this thing on. So I want to run up to the well house, check our little water meter, and see how many gallons we've used in this 30 minutes of watering this garden. $82 gallons. That's a lot more than I thought it was going to be. I don't know what I was expecting, but 82 gallons is a lot of water. Let's ride on down there and see what it looks like on the garden. I'll crunch some mathemologically numbers in my head and come up with some figures, and we'll talk about the geek stuff down there. Alright, back down here in the garden. Water is turned off. I couldn't find a shovel, so I got one of the plow blades from the wheel hoe. And I want to dig. Let me dig in one of these areas where we don't have seeds planted. That might be intelligent. Let's go over here, dig in a little bit, and see how much water we put underneath the ground. Alright, let's take a look-see and see where our wet soil is. Well, okay, there it is. The drip tape's right there. So, that's not bad. Let me dig down and see how far down it goes. So that's the drip tape right here. Let's see how far down the water goes. That's at least 7 inches down and it's still wet. The problem with this kind of test or assumption is this ground is going to hold its own moisture because we've had a lot of rain. So I'm not going to say that half an hour watering puts the water 7-8 inches down below the soil. Let's crunch some numbers here. That ran for 30 minutes, half an hour, used 82 gallons. So in 1 hour, that's going to use 164 gallons. Our well puts out 2.5 gallons per minute. Within an hour, that means it generates 150 gallons. So we have a deficit of 14 gallons. Luckily, our storage in our well casing itself, because when we had it drilled, when they hit water, we went an additional 100 and something feet. We were told our storage is 120 gallons in the well casing. So we have a buffer. Now, an hour solid of watering this is going to be too much. I really think it would be, unless we just are not getting any rainwater at all. But honestly, I mean, you put 82 gallons of water dead set right on those roots. I mean, if those suckers can't handle it, we got bigger problems than just what that is right there. It's just bigger problems are down. So I feel confident that this is not going to run our well dry. Phew, that's good. I was worried about that. It's also neat to see exactly how much water is being put into the garden, or how much water is being used. It's hard to judge just by looking at a hose running or assuming, you know, the little drippers, that's not that much water. Well, you add that up, those drippers over 15 rows, about 30 foot along a piece, you got yourself 82 gallons every 30 minutes. So I'm glad that it's not going to run our well dry. I'm glad we got the storage and the capacity to run it even at an hour long, but I'm not going to run it for an hour. We're probably going to do this thing 30 minutes a day, probably in the mornings, and just see how it goes from there. We'll play it by ear. We'll definitely watch our garden, obviously, and we'll see if the plants look like they're thirsty. Then we can run the water a little bit as need be, but I think 30 minutes a day is a good starting point for sure. 6, 4, 3, 2. I'm here second guessing myself. I hope I told you guys right. Hopefully I said that right. This is 82 gallons every half hour, 164 gallons an hour. Our well produces 150 gallons an hour. We got a 14 gallon deficit, but we have 100 and something storage in the tank, so we're good. We're not going to run this thing dry. Because if we ran it an hour, they'd be 164, would use 14. Yes, okay, yes, I think I said that right. I get confused after I turn the camera off thinking, geez, what did you say? What exactly did you say? Well, I don't think there's any comparison. I think this is the most efficient way to water your garden through human irrigation or manual irrigation. You know, other than rainwater harvesting and using that water that way, if you've got to take water from a pipe and put it in the ground, this has got to be the most efficient way. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or comments, things I didn't cover, something you're curious about, or if you got any other tests you want me to run, let me know down below. Otherwise, take care, have a great day, and I'll see you guys next time on the homestead, in the garden, or somewhere.